Good morning, Angela.
Good morning. Happy coffee.
Happy coffee for you too. So, what are we going to talk about today?
I thought we could talk about the recruiter screen. The recruiter screen seems to be something that gets people a little nervous. So I thought we could demystify that a little bit and make it a little easier for people to understand what's going on.
Yeah, let's do it. I definitely see that if you have never been in on the hiring side, it is a complete black box. So let's give people an insight on what it means to have a recruiter screen that is 15, 30 minutes, what they're trying to assess, and what are potential questions you can
Yeah,
expect.
perfect.
Angela.
I think it's first important to understand what the recruiter's role is on the team. So if I'm a hiring manager, generally when I have a role open, I'll be working with a recruiter to help me filter out kind of noise. So if you think about this as kind of a research project and trying to find the candidate that is qualified for my study, I'm going to have some filter criteria that I filter people down on at first. And because usually applicant pools are so big, that falls to the recruiter to really narrow down the candidate pool so that as a hiring manager, I can still do my day job. And then I can only be looking at candidates who at least have some base set of experience. So the recruiter's job, based on criteria that I give them, is to go out and find people who meet those and match those criteria. And that happens in a variety of ways. Sometimes it happens through outreach. That's where you might get a recruiter email or, a note through LinkedIn from a recruiter saying, "Hey, I saw your experience. I'd love to talk to you." Or alternately through the applications in the applicant tracking system, they'll sift through those and find people whose resumes meet those criteria, and then they'll hold a phone call with them. And the purpose of the phone call is really just to do that baseline assessment. And there's usually some standard things that people look through there. They look for, do you have your work authorization? They'll validate that your salary expectations are within their budgeted range. They'll validate some things on your resume. And then they're going to make sure that you can actually hold an engaging conversation too. That's core. They want to make sure that they're passing people forward who have a likelihood of getting hired. And then lastly, they might look for some behavioral things like, are you a good culture fit? Are there ways that you're interacting or presenting information about yourself that suggests you might be a good fit for the team dynamic? So those are really the things that a recruiter is looking for. I think the other thing that's really important to know about recruiters is that recruiters are some of the nicest people that you'll ever meet. They're very people oriented, very people friendly. They want you to succeed because if you succeed, it makes their job easier. So they're not out to get you. And then a lot of times recruiters are going to be your advocate. So if they come across you, you're a good candidate. Maybe you don't have all the skills, but you're really personable, you're really engaging, and they think that you would fit really well in the team dynamic. They might actually advocate for you with the hiring manager to say, give this person a chance. So I think it's important to recognize that when you start that process, it's not an us versus them. If you can come across as friendly, engaging, conversational, you have a much higher probability of getting to the next stage.
So basically, what I'm hearing is a recruiter, instead of thinking of them as someone who's working against you, you can actually make them your cheerleader and support you throughout the process if they believe that you are a good fit. Because, as maybe we can have one word on it, while the hiring manager is the one making the decision, the recruiter will be, in most cases, involved, correct? Or
Yeah,
in
the
discussion.
recruiter can be like an advisor to the hiring manager because the recruiter is going to see what's out there. They're going to see the full lay of the land in terms of what kind of candidates that we can get. So there might be cases where I'm asking for too much. There might be cases where I'm looking and I'm saying, I want these people with all of these skills and all of these skills. And the recruiter comes back to me and says, people with both of those skill sets aren't on the market right now. They don't exist. So you need to find you need to prioritize and define what you want. And so sometimes you'll see positions get reposted, you'll see them reposted at different levels. And sometimes that's just because when we went out, we weren't finding the right candidate. And through conversations with the recruiter, I might go, okay, I need to refine my criteria a little bit because I'm being unrealistic, or the process is going on too long because we're looking for a unicorn or something like that.
Okay, and now let's dig into the really interesting stuff. So, what are questions one could expect in these 15 to 20 minutes? Obviously, is not a lot of time to dig very deep. So, what are some questions if I sit here and think, how can I prepare for this?
Yeah. So, first off, know what you want to ask in terms of salary. A good way to do that is to go and do some research on sites like salary.com or payscale.com to see what the market rate is in your geography for that type of role. Usually I say if you're a PhD, if you've got a lot of applied experience, go for the median or higher on the role. The other thing that they're going to ask, and asking for the salary is very simple. You don't have to go into a big explanation. All you have to say is something to the effect of, I'm looking to make between this amount and this amount, though I'm more concerned with having a fair market wage. And so I'm open to discussion. And that just leaves it open to negotiation if you're off on your salary estimates because you want to maintain that optionality. You want to be the one that has the option to say no to them versus them excluding you right away. So that's the first one is be ready to discuss your salary. You don't have to go into a big, long justification for it. The second one is obviously work authorization. So do you have your authorization to work? Do you have your visa? Do you require any sponsorship? If you don't have those things and the company requires it, there's no chance of you getting hired. That is just a fact of the matter because having visas and hiring in different geographies, particularly different countries, has a major cost implication to it that can be in the tens of thousands of dollars range. So I worked for a company once where we had the perfect candidate. He lived in another country and it would have cost us $50,000 to get our payroll and employment all set up in that particular country. So it was wildly expensive. It was like a third of the person's salary. So there was no possibility that we were going to be able to do that. The other thing that you want to be prepared to answer is why you want to work for the company and why you want to work for the company in that role. You generally, for this question, want to have a personal, relatable story that connects your personal why to the company's mission. And this is usually just like a 20 to 30-second introduction to yourself and what you find interesting about that company and why it applies to you. So, for example, one of the women we worked with in our job search program at Alma Me, actually, when I asked her why she wanted to work for that company, she said, well, because I have the skills. And oftentimes, it's important to remember that these processes are human processes. They're looking for people who are going to connect and relate and all of those things. So you want to be relatable. So I dug in with her and asked her really what her why was. And her why was connected to having been, on the path to becoming a medical doctor and seeing how much people were suffering with chronic and terminal disease. And so she decided that she wanted to go and become a researcher so that she could be part of the solution for that. And that story, even just told in short form, becomes very powerful because people can connect and relate to somebody who wants to help, who wants things to be better. That's what makes you relatable. So you want to pull in those things that make you relatable and connect you to the company's work. It also reduces our risk of hiring you if you're connected to the work because we don't have to motivate you. You have intrinsic motivation. So it makes it a lot easier as a manager to work with you if you have that motivation. So you want to be prepared to answer that. And then you want to be prepared to do a walkthrough of your resume. Anything that's in your resume is fair game for them to ask about. So you want to be prepared to give a little more detail about the examples of your work experiences that are in your resume. And then lastly, sometimes they'll ask a behavioral question or two. And behavioral questions are just there to see how you would react and respond in certain situations that might come up at the company. So if they're a company that focuses on failure and learning, fail fast to learn fast, you're going to want to have they're going to ask you a story about failure and they're going to see if you're somebody who can move quickly past it. If you're a high feedback culture, they might ask you questions about when was the last time you gave or received feedback, and they want to see can you do that constructively. They may even give you feedback during the interview to see how you'll react and respond to that, because that observations can also be an important part of part of that type of interview. So those are all of just a few things that you could potentially be asked, but usually in 15 to 30-minute interview with a recruiter, you're maybe going to get asked 3 or 4 questions.
Cool. Thank you. That was really insightful, Angela. Anything else we need to add?
I would just say be yourself, be authentic, come in as you. The best interviews are the ones that feel conversational because you connect with people and you like them. And when you like somebody, you want to move them forward.
Yes, normal human behavior. If you like people, you like to work with people you like. I mean, that's just what we all like to do, right?
Yeah, hiring is human.
What a great way of finishing this little session. Thank you, Angela.
Yeah, thanks, Elena.